In this tutorial, we're going to go over the basics of reference page entries. In the last tutorial, you added a reference page with a few sample entries to your template. We'll be continuing to work on that template, so open it now. If you can't find your template, you can either review previous tutorials or use the sample template provided in the supplementary materials for this lesson. For many student writers, reference formatting feels unnecessarily nitpicky, but there's a reason references need to be presented in a precise way. Basically, all the formatting serves as a sort of code that tells the reader how to read the reference and find the source if necessary. For example, I set up the sample references from the last lesson as if this tutorial is an academic journal and the last lesson is an article in that journal. So the formatting tells me that this unitalicized title is either an article or chapter title, and this italicized title here is either a book or journal title. I can also see that the document was published in 2014 and that M.B. Brophy was the author of this example and J. Student was the author of this example. As a student, you want to make it as easy as possible for your teacher to verify your research so that you can get full credit, and good formatting is what makes that possible. We'll go over examples of three very common reference types: a book with one author, a journal article with more than one author, and a YouTube video. But before we do that, I want to show you the two best resources for APA formatting: apastyle.org and Purdue OWL. I've included links to these two sites in the supplementary materials for this tutorial. Let's go to apastyle.org first. If you find you need to reference a lot of sources, you might want to invest in a current copy of the Publication Manual of the American Psychological Association. It's the complete rulebook for APA Style, and it's in its 6th edition as of 2014. But the APA also includes a quick reference guide on this site, as well as samples for new electronic forms that may not yet be in the printed guide. For example, if we click on Facebook, we find links to several blog entries. And if we click on the entry that deals with reference pages, we'll find instructions and examples for citing a Facebook post. Next, let's go to Purdue OWL. This is the online writing lab for Purdue University, and it's a wonderful resource full of APA examples. If you look at the menu on the left side, you'll see that the examples are organized based on the issue involved. So if, for example, I want to know how to cite a journal article that has no author, I'd click on Authors because the authorship is the problem I'm trying to address. Then scroll down the examples until you find the one that meets your needs. In this case, I have two examples, one for an article in which the author is an organization, and one in which the author is unknown. I suggest you bookmark these sites or jot down the URLs somewhere so you can easily find them. But these are two common sites, so if you forget the URLs, just Google Purdue OWL or APA and you'll quickly find what you need. Okay, so let's get back to the template and start creating our sample entries. Since we're going to make samples that include common issues, you'll be able to use these as placeholders for many of your references. First, we'll create a book reference with one author. I've used a book called Laura Ingalls Wilder, A Writer's Life in my paper, and I want to create a reference. The basic information needed is the author's name, the title of the book, the publication year, and the publisher's name and location. You can find most of this information looking on the cover of the book or in the early pages, where all the copyright information is found. In this case, I find that the author of the book is Pamela Smith Hall. The book was copyrighted in 2007, and there's no other publishing year given, which tells me it was published the same year. The publisher is the South Dakota State Historical Society Press, and the publisher's location is Pierre, South Dakota. The basic formatting is to list the author first, last name, comma, first initials, period. Follow this with the parenthesis, year of publication, parenthesis, period. The title of the book is in italics, so click on the italics button. Capitalize the first letter of the first word of the title and the first letter of the first word of the subtitle if there is one. Since the subtitle in this case is also someone's proper name, capitalize the first letter in the names as well. Period. Be sure to click on the italics button again to unselect it. Now enter the publishing city, comma, publishing state abbreviation, colon, and the publisher's name. Period. And that's it. We now have a book title. Hit Return and we'll start our next reference. I've used a journal article I found on the online database JSTOR, and the article has 2 authors. I need all the same information as before, but I also need the name of the journal and the title of the article I'm referencing, the journal's volume and issue numbers, and the pages on which the article appears. I also need the digital location of the article. You'll find all this information on the search results page when you find the article. In JSTOR, all the information is gathered on a link called View Citation. We just have to format it properly. While many academic databases give you pre-formatted references, I suggest you at least double-check the formatting because the databases sometimes contain errors, and copying and pasting can result in formatting problems in your document. We're going to write out our reference. Start as before with the author's names, last name followed by first initials. When there are multiple authors, you separate them by a comma, and you place an ampersand after the second to last name. List the authors in the order you find them, even if it's not alphabetical. In this case, Steckel is listed before Prince, so I'm going to maintain that. Steckel, comma, R, period, H, period, comma, ampersand, Prince, comma, J, period, M, period. Parenthesis, year of publication, parenthesis, period. Title of the article with the first letter of the first word capitalized, colon, subtitle with the first letter of the first word capitalized. In this case, Native Americans is a proper noun, so we capitalize the first letter of Americans as well. Period. Select the italics button. Type the name of the journal, following the capitalization scheme the journal uses. Why do we do this for journal titles and not book titles? Who knows? This is one of the reasons why it's best to bookmark Purdue OWL and apastyle.org and reference them often. If you try to apply logic to reference formatting, you'll drive yourself crazy. The best answer for why is usually that at some point someone had to make a decision so that everyone was formatting in the same way, and that's the decision that was made. Place a comma after the journal title and find the volume number and the issue number if one exists. In this case, we do have an issue number, so type the volume number first, then stop and click on italics to deselect italic. You want the volume italicized, but if there's an issue number, you don't want the issue number in italics. Parenthesis, issue number, parenthesis, comma, page range using a dash between the first page and the last, period. If this was a printed journal article, we'd stop here, but we got it from an online academic database, so we need to tell the reader how to find the article. Type retrieved from, followed by the stable URL listed in the citation. And don't place a period at the end, even though it seems like you should. Hit the return key. Chances are good that you'll see a line appear underneath your URL. It may also turn blue. That's because OpenOffice Writer assumes that any URL is intended to include a hyperlink so that the reader can go right to the location by clicking on the URL. We don't want that to happen. Hold down the Control key on your keyboard and click on the link. A drop-down menu should appear. Release the Control key and click on Remove Hyperlink. Place your cursor on the next line. Don't place it next to the URL or your link will be hyperlinked again as soon as you press Return or the spacebar. While this article doesn't have one, many newer journal articles use a DOI number. DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier, and the number is used as a sort of universal identifying number. If your article has one, you'll use that number in place of the URL. Type DOI in lowercase letters, colon, and enter the DOI number. Again, don't place a period at the end, even though it seems like you should. If you find your article has both a URL and a DOI, you'll include them both. Place the DOI first, then type OR and place the URL. Hit the return key. For the last example, we're going to format a YouTube entry. Social media formatting is relatively new, so don't look for any kind of consistency here. If you can't find a direct example in Purdue OWL or apastyle.org, choose the sample that's most closely aligned with the media you're citing. For example, Yelp reviews have a lot in common with Facebook, so if you need to cite a Yelp review, The guidelines for a Facebook post are probably going to work best. However, a word of caution. If you can't find a specific example for the media you want to cite in either Purdue OWL or apastyle.org, you need to consider whether your source is appropriate for academic writing. The answer is going to depend on the course, the assignment, and your instructor. So if you're in any doubt, ask. I want to cite this YouTube video entitled Following the Trail of Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little Houses. I need the screen name of the poster, the exact date the video was posted, the title of the video, and the direct URL link to the video. If possible, find the real name of the poster as well. Check the opening and closing credits and look to see if the YouTube page is linked to a blog or website. If it is, check the Home and About pages to see if the poster gives a real name. In this case, I've looked around and I don't see a real username, so I'll start with the screen name, capitalizing the first letter of the first word, period. If I found a real name, I'd format as usual for APA, last name, comma, first initials, period. Then I'd enclose the screen name in square brackets, period, parenthesis, year, comma, month and day, parenthesis, period. Click the italics button. Title of the video, capitalizing the first letter of the title and the first letter of proper nouns and proper names. Square bracket, video file, square bracket, period. Retrieved from, followed by the URL. No period at the end. If you aren't familiar with YouTube, you can always find the URL by clicking on the Share button. As a last step, we need to be sure our references are in alphabetical order. In this case, our video is last but needs to be first. Put your cursor in front of the first reference and hit Return. Now select your video reference and click the Cut key. Place your cursor in the blank row you just created at the top and click the Paste key. So now we have a book, a journal article, and a YouTube video. You'll probably be able to use these examples to format the majority of your sources, and you can use apastyle.org and Purdue OWL for the rest. One last word of caution. A common mistake students make is to leave placeholder material on the reference page, particularly if they're writing an essay that doesn't require any research. This results in lost points. When you use your template, be sure to check the reference page and replace the material with your actual sources. If you aren't using sources, delete everything on the page. And that's it, not only for this lesson, but also for your template. We'll be using the template to practice different techniques in future lessons, but you should save a clean version somewhere and then create a practice version to use for the rest of the class. That way, you won't accidentally wreck your template trying out different formatting techniques. Thanks for joining me for this tutorial.